So, everyone, welcome to the podcast. This is the very first episode of Hoops with Coop. I am your host, Noel Guerra. This is the very first episode, and I would like to introduce my good friend, my good pal of Wizards fandom, Dominic. How do you say your last name?
Massimino.
Dominic Massimino, everyone. Would introduce yourself. Tell the audience what you do, and everything about Wizards fandom and all of that.
Yeah, sure thing. So both Noel and I write for Wiz of Oz, which is a fan-sided website covering the Washington Wizards. A lot of great work put out there from us and from our colleagues over at Wiz of Oz. So please check that out. I work as a local sports reporter in Northern California for a small newspaper in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. I cover high school sports and some junior college basketball. So I'm a big fan of sports all over, but have been a Wizards fan for a long time. Grew up in Tacoma Park, right on the edge of DC. So the Wizards got a strong place close to my heart.
Love that, love that. So as Wizards fans, we've gone through a lot of turmoil and heartache over the years, I would say. But for this season, as of right now, looking at the standings, we're 11-11, just at 500. Had a tough loss last night. And, the season, we're kind of in this middle ground, I would say. What are your takes so far, like throughout the season for these first 22 games?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of takes, I would say. It's still early days, but at the same time, 22 games into the season, that's like, it's over a quarter of the way in. So starting to see some trends developing, some good, some not so good. The first real takeaway though for me this season, and there's been kind of some buzz in Wizards media circles around this, is just kind of the emergence of this quote unquote big three. It kind of began as a joke before we got to see them spend a lot of time on the court together. Very kind of so Wizards of us to consider the three players in Bradley Beal, Kristaps Porzingis, and Kyle Kuzma to be a big three. But their play on the court has, I think, surprised a lot of people, myself included. They're all, each of them are averaging over 20 points a game. I think their averages as a trio are close to 66 points a game, 20 rebounds a game, and 12 assists per game. So those three are really driving the Wizards offense. And in terms of both Kuzma and KP, kind of big assets for the Wizards defense as well, which, as we know, has been a weak point in the past. So I think their emergence has just been kind of sort of a revelation this season.
I definitely say so. Watching them, it's weird because it's like, yeah, they are a big three, but I feel as though the number one player on the team has not really been the number one player on the team. Like every time I watch, like for instance, like watching last night, I'm watching the game, I'm thinking to myself, Bradley Beal might be the third best player on the Wizards right now. Like, and that's just the vibe that I've been getting all year, where I believe it was a 4 or 5 game stretch where he was out, and it's just Kuzma and KP, and they're taking over games. One game KP's taking over, the next game Kuzma's taking over, and we're winning games. And I don't know how you feel, but for me, there's just something off when Beal is on the court. There's just something off when he's like the head honcho, I feel as though. And I don't know what it is, but it's just this. I don't know how to describe it. It's weird because it's like I watch KP and KP looks like old KP, which is a revelation to say the least. He's been healthy so far, knock on wood. He has looked really good offensively, like very good offensively. And then Kuzma, another season of him getting better. That's the biggest joy I've gotten out of this season has been KP and Kuzma. But with Beal, I feel as though there's something missing, and I don't know if you feel the same way or not.
Yeah, so I have a few kind of takeaways to that from that rather. I think I would push back a little bit on the idea that of those three, Brad is the kind of the third of the trio. I think we have a tendency as Wizards fans to take a little bit for granted what Brad brings to the floor on a night-to-night basis, especially with that price tag that's been attached to him with his new contract that he inked. But I will say this: I think you're onto something in that I think KP has been the most important player for the Wizards this season, if not the best, if that makes sense. I still believe that in terms of a talent, in terms of ability, Bradley Beal's the best player on this team at his best. But I think KP and to a lesser extent Kuzma have been the reason why we are seeing the Wizards play a brand of basketball that's making us bang our heads against the wall a little bit less than we normally would. So I think you're onto something there. And then speaking to your point of things kind of looking a little bit different, sometimes worse out there when Brad is playing. To me, that is more of a chemistry thing than it is a basketball reason. I think on a group like this, where you have a lot of unproven young guys, and you have somebody who just signed one of the most lucrative deals in all of basketball, in Brad playing at the same time, I think when those guys get to be on the floor without Brad, they play a little freer. They play a little bit smoother. And when Brad is out there, I think they feel the need to defer to him. So the ball can sometimes stick with Brad a little bit more. Guys are a little bit less aggressive, especially looking at, say, Denny, Kispert, those guys. They're looking to give the ball up a little bit more, really high up the court, rather than kind of going to work on their own, which is what we want to see from them. So that's kind of my take on what you're seeing with that. But I definitely think you're onto something there.
Yeah, definitely bringing up Denny. Denny does seem hesitant when he's on the court. It's just that young guy jitters, I feel as though, where it's just like, okay, I know like this is the guy on the team, like let me give him the ball. Some people have that heat check type of confidence, just some players will go into a game and just be like, I'm gonna get my shots. Like first name, I don't know why it came to mind was like a young Jordan Clarkson. Like I'm gonna come in here and like I'm gonna put up these shots.
Jordan Clarkson.
So, but Denny, he's the opposite. Denny is very he seems like a lot wiser beyond his years. So he can get a little timid at times. But I do like what he's doing. Kispert has, he's been improving. There are some aspects of the team that are just not clicking. Will Barton, he's just not clicking. I don't know. I feel as though the last 2 years he's been a starter, and for him to like really come off the bench and have to play this secondary role, I don't think he's used to that. He, especially on the Nuggets team last year, he was probably the second option scoring wise behind Jokic. Aaron Gordon isn't that much of a scorer. He's kind of a slasher, cutter. Jokic gives him the ball, whereas Will Barton was pretty much the second creator of that team. And it's just not working, especially, if he comes into the game and, a Beal, Kuzma, or KP are in the game because, they're going to get the ball. So I feel as though Will Barton isn't clicking. The loss of DeLon Wright, it was the greatest 4-game stretch I've seen from a backup guard ever. That's what it felt like. I felt like he was always on the ball. I always felt as though he was going to get a steal when he wanted to. He was going to pressure the opposing backcourt of every team, and he was going to make it difficult. And losing him really hurt. And that's something that only Wizards fans, like us Wizards fans, will like ever realize. Because some people might, it's DeLon Wright. But no, DeLon Wright was about to be a difference maker, and it just sucks that he's gone. Are there any other takeaways? Like, do you have any thoughts on Rui? I know it's contract year. We don't know if we're going to bring him back or not. We didn't extend him, obviously. Do you think Rui is the right person for the future? Do you think Rui has a place on the Wizards?
I love Rui.
I do too. I love Rui.
Even
Special place in my heart.
Yeah, even only just from a naive kind of fan perspective, I really love Rui. I have seen floated around Brian Windhorst, I think, reported that the Wizards might be one of the interested suitors in Jay Crowder, who has been upset and sitting out for the Suns for a while now this season. He would offer something very useful to the Wizards. Again, it would be kind of a so Wizards kind of move to bail on a former first round draft pick for kind of an established vet. But given the Wizards' outlook on this season and the few seasons ahead, kind of trying to capitalize on Bradley Beal's best few years that he still has ahead of him, hopefully. It kind of would make sense to make that move. And I think the fit would be a little better. I don't really I see Rui as being expendable on this team, given the emergence of Kuzma. That wasn't the case, obviously, before he arrived in DC, but
Definitely.
since then, I mean, there was this explosion in Rui's 3-point shooting at the end of last season, which is kind of withered away, or rather returned to the norm a little bit in the beginning of this season. He's still a pretty unwilling defender, a pretty unwilling passer. I just think that if Rui is going to surpass where he's at right now as a player, it's not going to be in DC. So it might end up being the best move for everybody to move on.
It sucks. I love him so much, like as a guy, like as just a person. Like it's just something about him, like I really love. I thought the Japan games, seeing him, kind of look like a superstar, obviously in his native country. I was like, okay, this is going to be the season for Rui. I was getting myself kind of worked up. Like he looks ready. And it's just like how you said with Kuzma, I didn't expect Kuzma to be this good. Coming from LA, there's this, kind of group of players where you can label them as like the Los Angeles Lakers All-Stars, the New York Knicks All-Stars, where it's like they look good because they're always on TV, or like they look good from like a different perspective, but then when you take them out of
effect, yeah,
like you take them out of there and you're just like, oh, they're just another guy. And I thought that's what we were going to get with Kuzma, but it has been the complete opposite. I love Kuz, but like you said, that makes Rui, very expendable. And if we could get a veteran like Jay Crowder, or, just shipping him off for, other young pieces for a team that might want to give him an extension and might look at him as a future for their foreseeable future, maybe. But I mean, I do love Rui. There are other pieces that I feel as though this team is very deep, but there are players that are expendable. So, you have players like a Will Barton, I believe is on an expiring. You have Rui on an expiring. You have young guys like Kisper, Denny. I guess we could throw in Johnny Davis. I don't I don't know what that's.
I personally, I'm tired of the trying to dig into Johnny Davis just until we see more of him. I feel like everything that can be said about what we have seen about Johnny Davis has been said. And I don't claim to be a draft analyst or anything like that. We got a lot more intelligent people in the Wizards kind of draft space who have said a lot about Johnny Davis, but I think we just need to see more. He needs a little bit of time to develop, needs some time to get his confidence in the NBA. He made, I want to.
Have you been catching up on his?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, have you been catching up on his go-go stuff? I haven't been really paying attention.
He had a couple of good, so Matt Baderno, if you follow him on Twitter, has done a bunch of great work covering the go-go, probably some of the best in the Wizards kind of fan media space. So I followed him a little bit. He had a couple of pretty decent games, and I want to say he made his first NBA jumper in this most recent game before the Nets game in garbage time near the end. So there's something there. I'm for my own personal sanity, I just try to, I'm going to try and yeah, he was our draft pick until he's developed a little bit and we can maybe see something more from him. But yeah, man, I mean, I think there are going to be some moves made at the deadline with this Wizards team, just because I think with the Beal contract, they're pretty locked in on like trying to compete, whether or not they're going to actually be able to in this talented Eastern Conference. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Barton moved, if we see Rui moved, guys who don't really fit into what the Wizards' plan for the future is, which it looks to be try and win as many games as they can right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went out after somebody like Terry Rozier or Jay Crowder, people who can really help with them now, fill some spots that they need.
Definitely wouldn't mind any moves. Okay, so last question before we go. What do you think is going to be the what do you think is going to happen by the end of the season? Where do you think the Wizards are going to stand?
Yeah, so on the last podcast I went on, shout out Brandon Scott at Oliver on the Locked On Wizards podcast. They asked me this question. I think they posed the question over under 44 wins. And I said under 41. 41 was my guess. I think given what we've seen so far, I think I can still stick with that. The Wizards have a tendency to go on these kind of tough runs of games in the kind of third quarter of the season. And so I think even though they're exactly at 500 now, I think they might slip just a couple games. But yeah, I think probably around 41 wins, probably in the play-in. But I got to say, it's with KP, with Kuzma, with Brad playing effectively, it's a lot more fun basketball to watch. So I'm thankful for that. Thanksgiving was a while ago, but I'm thankful for that.
Perfect. Dominic, thank you so much. Definitely everyone give him a follow on Twitter. We will be posting his Twitter on below on the description. And yeah, definitely give him a follow. Check up on all his work for Wiz of Oz. And see you next time. Thank you. Take care.
Appreciate it, Noel.